Thank you very much for getting up so early. At least we get a bit of a sunrise there with the rays poking through the clouds. Last year we presented a series of talks on how to create government websites that don't suck. How many people came along to that? Cool, bunch of you. Well, apparently we hit a nerve. We put those slides online, and over 6,500 people have viewed those slides. So we obviously hit a bit of a nerve there. But this year we wanted to turn it around and talk about websites that inspire us, websites that delight us. So this is hopefully going to be a fun presentation. We're going to go a bit all over the place. But before we get into it, I thought I'd start off with a story that's got nothing to do with government, nothing to do with government websites, but it does have everything to do with great customer service. Who's been to Matterhorn before? Pretty much everyone. Anyone been before it was a restaurant and cocktail bar in its latest incarnation? Wow, heaps. Yeah, so apparently it's been around since 1963, which I didn't know. But anyway, in March we had this guy, Adan and Christian, who at the time were the owners of Matterhorn. They actually sold it a week later, which they managed to keep under wraps. Anyway, they came in and talked to our Wellington team about great customer experience, what it is that they do at Matterhorn to really make it an awesome experience for their diners. So these guys have won a ton of awards. They won Cuisine's Restaurant of the Year in 2008 and a bunch of other awards. And we were really interested in finding out what the secret sauce was, how they'd done it. So they've got a few things that they do that make Matterhorn special. So for a start, the Matterhorn want to create an emotional connection with people. As they put it, they charge you 10 times more for that glass of wine than what you pay if you were drinking it at home. So there's got to be a reason for you to come into their restaurant. They want you to come in and unwind, to have a sense of belonging, to be like a friend of Matterhorn. They want that emotional connection. So they think about ways that they can show you that they care. So I don't know if you've ever noticed when you're dining at Matterhorn, but you never really have a half-filled water glass. So one of the ways that they like to show that they care is to notice when you've had a bit of water to drink and they're constantly topping up your water glass. So I thought that was kind of interesting. They also know that different customers have different needs depending on the time of the day. So they talked about the need to be agile, to kind of feel the vibe of the restaurant. And if they've got a band coming in, what they might do is delay the start of that band if they kind of feel the timing's not quite right. So that was something that I hadn't really thought about, the fact that these guys as restaurant owners have to be agile. Of course, one of the things that's their secret sauce, I guess, is the great food and drink. That helps. So I was reading some stuff about innovation recently, and it talked about if you want to think innovatively about the business that you run, what you can do is try and pretend it's something else. So I want you to imagine what it was like, what it would be like if your organisation was run like a restaurant. So could you create a website that gave people an emotional connection, that made them want to be a regular? Are there simple ways that your website can show that it cares about people, the citizens of New Zealand? And can you treat people differently depending on what their needs are, like they do at the Matterhorn, depending on the time of the day? Just a little bit of food for thought. But onto government websites that rock. So here are some of the attributes that I believe are common to government websites that rock. So not every website is going to have each one of these attributes. We're going to go through these in detail. I've got lots of examples for you. I was going to rearrange these to spell out a handy acronym that you could remember, but all I could come up with was a soup, which is why I'm not going to rearrange them. So a couple of points before we get into it. Number one, all of these examples are from overseas, and it's been pretty deliberate. So I wanted to show you guys perhaps some sites you hadn't seen before. So that's not to say that there aren't examples of world-class government websites here in New Zealand. I just wanted to, I guess, expand your horizons a little bit. And secondly, I've tried to give you some takeaways from the field of psychology. It's really interesting in usability at the moment. There's a real trend to go back to some of these first principles of psychology. And I think it's because the field of usability is maturing. We know how to design experiences that people can use. We've got the methodologies, we've got the standards, we've got all the templates there. So now we're looking at psychology to take things to the next level, to help us influence people's behaviour. So I want to share some tips from psychology with you, so hopefully they'll be useful and applicable. So the first thing I wanted to talk about was usefulness, and I want to talk about it first for two reasons. The first is that it's kind of the ticket to the game. If your site's not useful, well, it's useless. And secondly, I think it's interesting that you can have a very boring, very unattractive, functional website and it still be a tremendous success for the people who use it. If it helps users achieve their goals, then some of the other stuff that we will be talking about in terms of it being attractive and social and open don't matter so much. I think this is probably one of the most important attributes of successful government websites. This is a very boring car tax website from the UK. And it used to be in the UK that you would have to go down to the post office to pay your car tax, and you'd have to bring a wad of papers. You'd have to bring your insurance certificate, your roadworthiness test results, and it was a pretty tedious task. So all that stuff has now been replaced by this online service, and it validates in real time whether or not your insurance is up to date. It validates whether or not there's any outstanding issues with your car. So this website's not particularly pretty. It isn't new. It's got nothing to do with social media, but it is a really great example of making life easier, and people love it who use it. The Benefits Advisor in the UK is another site. This is another good example of a useful site for people. It calculates what benefits you might be eligible for. Again, not particularly pretty, but people have written into the department to thank them for the service. It launched last year. And again, not outstanding from a design point of view, from a usability point of view, but it has been positively received. And about 40% of people have said that it saved them a phone call, which is the whole point of this particular website. That was their goal, was to get people to self-serve rather than jump on the phone. Useful websites also try and cut down on the jargon, so the citizens shouldn't have to know about the mechanics of government to be able to interact with it. So this is the Norwegian government portal, which does a very good job, I think, of getting rid of the jargon. So you don't see the names of government departments in this particular portal. They kind of hide all that detail from the citizens. So again, not particularly pretty. I keep thinking that, I don't know how well you can see that logo in the corner, it kind of looks like a llama to me. And it's interesting, Norway.no. Anyway, it's not particularly pretty. It is a useful website though. And one final example, Transport for London Journey Planner. This was actually a People's Choice Award winner for the Webbies in 2009. And the interface, again, a little bit clunky, but the capability is really second to none. And planning a journey can be a pretty complicated exercise for humans. If we were to replace this with stacks of timetable books from all sorts of different, ferry, train, whatever, it would be a very complicated exercise for us to try and figure out. And I think part of the reason this works so well is that it steps people through planning their journey. So in this case, it's my brother's postcode and a postcode of a person that I needed to meet for lunch. This is a real scenario from about a month ago. So you plonk that in, and the journey planner gives me lots of options in terms of route length, different transport options, that kind of thing. And us humans really like options. We're going to talk about that a little bit later on, sometimes to our detriment. But yeah, it gives me lots of options. I choose one of those. It gives me the detail of the route. So we're kind of drilling piece by piece. We're drilling down into the actual, to the route itself. I can even see all the steps on the map. So you can see here, this is the start point, that green line showing me where I need to walk. So, so it's a very, very useful site. The advanced options are pretty amazing as well. It really starts to show you how joined up some of their system is when you look at those different types of transport. I don't know how well you can see that, but you've got options to say I've got my bike with me, or I'd like to take the tram, or I can't use stairs, so that it can kind of try and calculate a route for your particular needs. So again, very useful.